Hello, I'm Leanne Cordisco. Welcome to our kitchens. It's November in Madison, so it's finally cool enough to turn on the ovens and start roasting. That's exactly what we're going to do today. I'm going to make you a roasted chicken with the addition of two special seasonal ingredients. The first one local, the second one not so local. So, the first ingredient we're going to be using is the celeriac, or celery root, as the name implies. This is simply the base of a celery plant, the root of a celery plant. We're going to peel it, cube it, roast it, and you'll find this really intensifies a sweet celery flavor. It's got a caramelized flavor because the sugars roast in this thing. It's just fantastic when we add it to other roasted root vegetables, including our old buddy, the potato, a couple of baby carrots, and maybe even a parsnip or two. The second ingredient that we're going to be cooking with seasonally is a whole black truffle. Now I know this is kind of spendy, this isn't grown in Madison, but I have to laugh for a second because I just got a whiff of this thing, and it's wonderful if you love truffles like I do. Just getting a whole truffle to cook with is it's just a treat. So they're growing seasonally right now in Europe. We can't get them here fresh, but I ordered this online. It came to me within 3 or 4 days. It was frozen and vacuum sealed. I gently thawed it. Let me put it over here so you can see it. So I gently thawed this, and you can see it's firm, it's yielding to pressure a little bit, so it's ready to be cooked with. And this is almost as good as being in Tuscany and getting a fresh black truffle, but it's certainly going to make our dish wonderful. So what we need to do is cut up our root vegetables. And I'll begin with the celeriac. Cut off the top of it, cut off the bottom, just to give you something solid, stable to work with. And then with a small knife, a paring knife, peel it like it were just as if it were an apple. So once it's peeled, let's just chop into cubes. I'm doing about a 1 centimeter dice. There we go. Do 2 pieces at a time here. And it's just that easy. Next I'm going to peel and cube 2 potatoes. So I'm going to cut 1 slice off of him, so again it's got a stable bottom. Makes it easier to cut. And cut it into roughly the same size pieces as the celeriac. That will allow our vegetables to cook evenly. That goes into the roasting pan as well. I've got a parsnip. I'm going to peel him. Bottom end. And cut the larger pieces. I'm going to cut the larger pieces into smaller chunks. And in that goes. I've also got some baby carrots that still have their greens on them. I want to remove the greens, but I want to keep some. I want to remove the majority of the greens, but I want to keep a little bit of the stalks. I think that they're really pretty when they cook down, when they're cooked and they've got just a little bit of that green remaining. To me, it just seems like it just makes them look very natural. And I'm going to leave these whole. I'm going to just put those into the roasting pan as well. Now our roasting pan has the potato, it's got the parsnips, that wonderful celeriac, it's also got these carrots. So they're just going to get a nice healthy dose of olive oil. Use a good quality olive oil. And a little bit of salt. Now that our roasted vegetables are done, it's time to turn our attention to the chicken. here's the chicken that we're going to use. I got this at the farmer's market, and I've already done a couple things to it to get us ready up to this point. First, I washed the inside of the cavity, I washed the outside of the bird, patted it dry, and then secondly, I let it sit in the refrigerator for a few hours this morning on a rack like this, a cookie rack, which I will of course be scrubbing down before I use it again on cookies, sitting on top of a plate. And the reason for that is to get some airflow underneath the chicken, and that's going to allow the chicken skin to dry. That's what's going to give you the crispy skin that you want when you're roasting a chicken. If we were to put this chicken into the oven without drying off the skin could get flabby, and although the chicken will taste just fine, you won't have that wonderful crispy skin that people fight. So what I've got is some freshly cracked black pepper that I put in a little cup, and some salt. And I don't want to touch my pepper grinder or my salt cellar now that I've got chicken hands. So before I started this video, I just put the salt and the pepper in the little containers like this so that there's no cross-contamination. So inside the cavity, a lot of salt, a generous amount of salt, I should say, a generous amount of pepper. That's really going to help to flavor the chicken. Also, we're going to put onion and garlic inside the cavity of the chicken. This wasn't on the recipe in the magazine, but I think that this is a nice addition. There we go. We'll slide that inside. We could also take a head of garlic, move him over here. And I'm just going to cut this in half, just like that. I'm going to stuff that inside there too. Okay, now let's turn our attention to the truffle. We want the truffle to go underneath the skin so that it seasons the skin and it also flavors the meat of this chicken. And I'm going to place it in the breast area as well as in the leg area. So to do that, I need to loosen the skin from the bird. And to do that, I'm just sliding my finger up through the neck cavity and gently opening up a pocket underneath the skin of the breast. Notice that I'm not tearing the skin of the chicken. You certainly want to keep that intact. Okay. So, let's get at the leg meat. I've come in through the back of the chicken now, through this open cavity, and right in here is where I put my finger. Again, slide it underneath the skin. Gently separate the skin from the meat. Try not to tear the skin. I'll repeat it on the second side. There's an open space between the cavity, or excuse me, there's an open space between the meat of the chicken and the skin. I'm putting my finger into that open space and then gently releasing the skin around the leg. And that's all we need to do. Now it's time to slice up the truffle and get this underneath the skin of the chicken. Here's the truffle. And to slice it, you can certainly get a truffle slicer. It looks like a cheese slicer almost, but I find that a paring knife and just taking your time works just as well. So, thin slices. Maybe the width of a quarter, if you can. A little bit thinner would be better. And that ought to work. So that one truffle has given us 6, potentially 7 pieces here. I'll put 2 pieces underneath each breast and then 1 piece in each leg, and that should give us a really good flavor across the entire bird. So just go into that opening that you created before with the truffle. Let me move my hand so you can see. And slide it down underneath the skin. And there's one side. Go over to the other side of the breast cavity. Find that opening. Slide the truffle between the skin and the breast meat, and that's done. Turn the bird around. Take another piece of truffle and place it on top of the leg meat. La. And take our remaining piece of truffle, put it under that piece of leg meat, one little piece left. I guess we could put that right over there. And this is now set to go. One last step before we put this into the oven. I'm going to slather a little bit of butter on here. Why not? It's a holiday roast. It's going to be special. The addition of a little bit of butter will add a lot of flavor. It'll add some nice crispy elements to the skin. So I've got a little bit of butter that I've softened, and just rub it in across the skin. Don't have to be pretty. Now, last thing we're going to do to this guy is a little bit of salt and pepper on the top, put it on top of the roasted root vegetables in our pan, and get it in the oven. There's the pepper. Here's the salt. Don't be afraid to be generous with this. Turn them over. Give them a little salt on the back side. And, okay. Let's get this into the roasting pan. Take a look at what I did with the wings here. I just took the little ends of the wings, and rather than having these guys kind of flop around off to the side of the bird, I took it and I tucked it under. And that's just going to help keep the bird together so that the little wings will cook at the same time as the other pieces of chicken. Now, I've started this at 400, as I mentioned before. I would do that just to give the chicken skin a head start. And chicken, depending on the heat of your oven, the size of the bird, cooking times will vary. A good rule of thumb is between 15 and 20 minutes per pound of chicken. This is about a 4.5 pound chicken, so it should take about an hour and 20 minutes if I'm doing my math right. So somewhere between an hour and 10, an hour and 20. I'm starting this oven at 400 to crisp up the skin. After about 10 minutes or so, I'm going to turn it down to about 350, maybe 340 degrees, and then just let it go. Okay, time's up. Let's see how we did with roasting our chicken with truffle, black truffle underneath the skin, as well as the celeriac and other root vegetables underneath. Oh, look at that! That's a lovely little chicken! So, the skin is brown and crispy. You can't really hear it from where you are. I'm getting lots of nice, ouch. Don't do that. That part is really hot. So we're done cooking this chicken, but we're not quite ready to eat it yet. We have to let it rest. One of the most important steps in roasting a chicken, or any other meat really, is after you pull it out of the oven, don't serve it immediately. As this thing has been cooking, the juices inside of it have been concentrating towards the center of the chicken. That's what happens when you apply heat. By letting it rest, those juices will have a chance to redistribute. The meat will be juicier, a little more tender. It makes all the difference in the world. Cut right down the breastbone, and this should come right off of here. There we go. You can see that the breast meat is nicely cooked. The skin of the chicken is really crisp. If we peek underneath here, the breast meat is still juicy and pliable, and those truffles are going to be just wonderful. And that wonderful crispy skin. I'm going to have to try that first. Take a look at these vegetables. Here's my celeriac. It's roasted down to where it's soft, and the sugars inside of it caramelize. There's a wonderful, fragrant celery flavor coming off of this, and it balances great with the chickens. You've got to try this recipe. Roasted chicken with celeriac and black truffles. So, until next time, I'm going to practice my carving skills for you. I'll see you in our kitchen.